in every drop of water เราไม่สามารถที่จะหาน้ำสะอาดที่ดื่มได้
We'd like to tell you some stories.
ถ้าไม่มีน้ำ
Stories about water.
Children died from drinking the polluted water.
I close my eyes, about to sleep. I think and think again. I open up my mind, my soul, and let it roam over the face of the water out into the future.
For the small island countries of the South Pacific, the future holds many uncertainties. But few demand such urgent action as the need to safeguard vital sources of fresh water and the environment. The freshwater resources of small islands are limited in quantity and highly vulnerable to contamination from seawater and human pollution. The island of Tongatapu in the Kingdom of Tonga faces serious environmental problems, especially in the capital Nuku'alofa. Community activist Hauoli is working with the women in her neighbourhood to build awareness at the grassroots level, clean up the island and stop the pollution.
One thing in my life that I'm very dedicated about is environment. So in my position as a communication and media officer, I mobilize the community.
Hauoli works for Longa Whanua Awhawhine, the national women's organisation. She uses radio, television and direct visits to schools to try and bring a new awareness of the threats to Tonga's environment.
When I ask the question, why is it important for a clean environment? At first, the answer that I got from them is because of the tourism. If Tonga is not clean, then we won't get this tourism and then we won't get any income. But today, the answer, if the environment is not clean, then we will be so unhealthy, we will get disease.
More than 1,000 miles across the Pacific from Tonga are the tiny islands of Kiribati. The water problems of small low-lying islands have come to a head on the southern part of Tarawa Atoll. Barely above sea level, South Tarawa is a ribbon of tiny islands connected by man-made causeways fringing the vast Tarawa Lagoon. Water supplies here are threatened by population growth, climate change and pollution. The future has caught up on South Tarawa as land runs out and water grows short. A community development team is working here to bring new awareness of the perilous state of the groundwater. Damfang Binoka and Marion Mamina are members of the team.
I'm a project officer in the Community Development and Sustainable Participation Project. Our objective is to work with communities to improve awareness and empower them to realize and solve their own problems regarding these issues.
I think it's an important job because it's going to be a big problem and in the future, and it needs to be solved quickly.
On small coral islands, the groundwater aquifer is a layer of fresh water within the coral and rock below the island. This lens-shaped body of water floats on the seawater below. Because the lens is small in volume and only 1 or 2 metres below ground level, it's highly vulnerable to saltwater contamination and pollution resulting from poor waste management. Close to 40,000 people, almost half the population of Kiribati, now live on South Tarawa without adequate sanitation, sewage and waste disposal.
I think with the overpopulation, as the years goes by, the quality of the underground water especially is rapidly degrading. There's still some places, especially less populated areas, where the water quality is still good, but most of them are not fit for drinking.
Across the Pacific, alarm bells are ringing as governments and community activists try to come to grips with these twin water problems of pollution and scarcity, and try to motivate their people to safeguard the environment.
I think people are generally not aware of the interrelationships of water. They know that water can be polluted, but they're not sure of how what they do can impact on our waterlands.
Growing up on Tongatapu in the village of Hauoli, Hauoli V learned the importance of maintaining a clean household and healthy environment. Then, as now, regular inspections were conducted of each home. The women call this the mobilization of shame.
When I was a kid, I remember my grandmother, like village inspection, it's a big thing for her. She'll go out to the steps, even though there's no dirt, you don't spot any dirt on the front steps. Go there scrubbing and everything. So I learned about it while young. And 1998, that's when I went into the Lokuvalu and first went to an environmental meeting. And after that, I was determined to do something. So I concentrate on environmental issues.
Although Tongatapu is a higher and larger island than Tarawa, it faces a similar threat to its groundwater resources. The Tongan capital, Nuku'alofa, is a bustling modern town with a population of about 100,000.
There are more people coming in. And new factories are coming up, and so the water usage is getting more and more, and we do not have any proper sewage treatment plant for used water here in Tonga. So household toilets use the septic tanks, and the water here from the hospital drains straight down here to the lagoon, and they did some surveys, and there's been a lot of contamination found in the lagoon.
For Hauoli V, this deteriorating state of her island home is a call to arms.
What do you see, my friend? What do you care, my friend? I see hunger, poverty, disease spread out. I see death. I see a land without life. I see me. I see my image in the shape of a frightful-looking child. I look away.
Pollution from poor waste management has become a headache in Tonga. Hauoli addresses the problem simply and directly.
We've collected most of these plastic and aluminium cans from the lagoon edge and then put it all together here as an example of our recycling processes with the drums.
With help from local companies and tradesmen, she has started a rubbish recycling initiative.
The yellow bin is for rubbish only, and the red drums, we collect the aluminium cans, and the green one is for plastic or glass bottle. The advantage of this recycling process is it helps minimize the littering problems here. We have a big problem with littering around our environment. So like for the businesses who are responsible to bringing in the plastic, being responsible to ship it out of Tonga. It will take a long time, I would say, but you have to be patient with the people.
On South Tarawa, the only groundwater that is still safe is the lens at Bonriki. From this reserve, water has to be piped more than 30 kilometres down the ribbon of islands to the capital Besio on the southern tip of the atoll. This transmission pipeline is now undergoing extensive rehabilitation under a major government water and sanitation upgrade project.
At the moment, our contractor is working on a trench to cater for the main transmission pipe to run from where the water reserve is, Bonriki down to Teoreriki. The new transmission pipe will be used just to feed in the water, using the old transmission pipe as the distribution pipe.
Influencing people's attitudes and behaviour that impact on water is an integral part of the water and sanitation project. The community development team is working with families still living on the Bonriki Reserve to safeguard the health of the lens.
This family is actually living on the water reserve, People are encouraged not to live here because of the pollution or degradation that they can cause to the waterlands.
It is not easy for Dan Fang and Marion to convey the importance and urgency of the situation to villagers who are used to a traditional way of life in apparent harmony with their surroundings.
The population is growing very fast, and comparing with the past, there are few people and they drink from well water and they don't boil it and they do not get sick. But now when you drink water that it's not boiled, you can easily get sick.
But as time runs out for South Tarawa, the government is trying to convince families living on this reserve to leave and is offering assistance to resettle on other islands. Conditions at Bonriki village, just outside the water reserve, illustrate the dire need for the work of the awareness team.
Many people now are coming in and live on this area. The problem is the children will get sick. They will get diarrhea and some sort of sickness from the polluted water. Most of them use the area as a toilet because they have no toilet. And some of them, they use the pond as a toilet too.
In Tonga, men are traditionally the decision makers. But at village meetings such as this, chaired by Hauoli's Aunt Tuna, the women take action.
The men are the head, the men can be the chairperson, but we are the drivers of the committees, we make our voices heard. And not only that, they plan and leave it there. And who's going to carry out the plans? It's the women's committees in the villages that make sure that it happens.
Schooled by the impressive women organisers of the Longawhanua, Hauoli has put a lot of effort into establishing good relationships with local businesses to support her waste recycling scheme.
Oh yeah, we can make it a long-term assistance from us. And we'll keep on collecting drums and keep sending it to your program.
We have to make the drums more attractive. If it will be going out like that, my mentality, I wouldn't like to go dump rubbish over there. It looks so ugly. So to mobilize the people, you have to attract them. Like for those people who are used to just throw it around, they might see the bright red color and say, oh, this is cute, maybe I should just drop it right in.
In Kiribati, the awareness team focuses on mobilizing village women to change attitudes and behavior about water and sanitation practices. New knowledge is accompanied by new perceptions about the role of women in the community.
In our culture, we normally have a general community meeting, usually dominated by men, and women are not actively involved in the discussion and decision making. We realize that women are very important part of our community, especially as stakeholders in water issues and management, because most of the workload rests on women and to a lesser extent children. Women are responsible for fetching water, bathing children, teaching children about sanitation practices, disinfecting water like boiling, which is usually time consuming, and all those activities. So we think women are really important in this project. That's what we're trying to work with them differently from the traditional structure.
The community awareness team employs a variety of techniques to inform and influence people's attitudes and behaviour based on their understanding of local beliefs and culture.
Without people, they feel bored when there's just talking, and that's why they introduce drama. And we believe that with drama, people like to watch, and with a message that we're trying to relate to the people, it stays.
Like Tarawa, Tongatapu's water supply depends on dwindling groundwater sources, degraded by pollution from poor sanitation and sewage. In the past, citizens shared large communal rainwater collection systems. These were solid structures that held impressive reservoirs of clean water. Unfortunately, now that piped water is available, they're no longer in use.
For drinking, people still prefer rainwater, and that's why they have their own tanks. But unfortunately, the groundwater has been abandoned because it's polluted.
There are still a few functioning wells in Hauoli, but the villagers know that this water is unsafe to drink and can be used only for washing or gardening.
In the 1950s, the groundwater was tested and seemed to be polluted. And rather than educate people to take care of the wells better or not to use pit toilets, which might have been leaching into the groundwater, they provided a reticulated service instead.
The root of the problem was bacterial contaminants. And so the United Nations sent a team down here to establish the Tonga Water Board. The United Nations thought we could chlorinate the water supply and reduce the morbidity and mortality from gastroenteritis.
With the groundwater under Nuku'alofa seriously polluted, clean water is now piped from a lens out of town.
For the whole of Tongatapu, we have 3 lenses. And the second biggest is where Nuku'alofa is having its source from. So it comes just gravity feeding from 15 to 20 meters from the source, all the way down here to about maybe 0 or -1 below sea level. One source treated and then reticulated for the whole of Nuku'alofa here.
There are flush toilets in most houses and all the public buildings here. But as a reticulated sewage system is not a viable option, the only thing providing some measure of protection for the groundwater are septic tanks, which are poorly maintained. Contamination of water lenses from industry, pit toilets and leaking septic tanks is disastrous for the ecology of small islands relying solely on their groundwater. The lessons of today are based on the mistakes of yesterday. On Tarawa, these lessons were learned the hard way.
In the 70s in Pesu, there's been an epidemic of cholera, and a lot of people died from that. There are water-related diseases like diarrhea, skin disease, and conjunctivitis also from the pollution. Especially when it rains like now. Infection with worms, it's common because children play with puddles, exposing them to higher risk.
In Tonga, solutions are being found just off the Nuku'alofa waterfront on the tiny reef island of Atata. Led by their visionary town officer, the people of Atata village work together to protect the island environment.
Every Monday they work for the village. Some of them they left school and they didn't have any job. So I think of something for them to do. They clean the beach. Now they plant some trees to protect the island. We call it a small park.
Hauoli and Development Project Officer Lokuvalu Leha are visiting the island to check out the composting toilets adopted throughout Atata. These toilets are having a radical effect on the amount of stored rainwater being wasted and flushing pollution down into the groundwater lens.
Our lives depend on water. If water is not pure enough, not clean, I think it affects our daily life. And I think this is a good idea to introduce this kind of technology.
Lokuvalu was involved in earlier test trials of composting toilets with environmental scientist Leonie Krenan. Tevita heard about the experiment and obtained government assistance to design and construct composting toilets for every home in his village. These toilets attack the problem of polluted groundwater at source. They treat human waste separately, composting it down with leaf material swept up from the compound. After a safe composting period, they produce sterile compost for the village gardens. No water at all is used in this organic process.
There's no flies outside. You can't, no flies, no smell.
Composting toilets have had some problems winning acceptance. They need to be integrated into modern house designs before this technology can make a difference on a big scale.
It is a very delicate method. In Tonga, everybody is going to be more developed, so they go for the flush toilet rather than compost toilet. It's just an attitude that we have to work very hard in order to change.
Composting toilets have not scored so highly on Tarawa, where trials have also been held.
I think the interest is more on having a septic toilet. The reason being the rural areas feel marginalized if they are given the choice of having just composting toilets. I think the ultimate goal for rural areas from the point of view of government is to have a sewer line in all areas.
My plan for my new house, I want a compost toilet instead of flushing toilet. And I think if my house is constructed with compost toilet, it's a good example for other people.
If there's no water, if the water is polluted, how will the future generations survive? And if there will be drought, how are they going to get water? So my mission will be establishing compost toilets here in Tonga.
Both Tonga and Kiribati face the same test, safeguarding every drop of available water to service the demands of today and finding ways to guarantee water for tomorrow.
It's not too late for me. I'm the future, you're the present. Take action, my ancestors. Take action from your visions. Save me, my soul, by saving the water of life. Put it into action. It's not too late. I'm the future, you're the present.